Okay, so I'm recording now. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do today is we're going to work on the lines in the road, right? So one of the things I said the other day was that to kind of give us the sense that the lines are more realistic, we're gonna always make sure that there's like a portion of the line that's falling off the page. That will help to convince us that it's real. So I'm just going to use my straight line tool, and right about the middle of the sidewalk up there, it doesn't really matter where you put it, but I'm just going to put in a horizontal line. And I'm going to use the guide to do that because apparently I can't draw a horizontal line today. Okay. Now I'm going to think to myself like about the distance between the lines in the road, and I'm just going to make a decision about how far they might be apart from each other. Maybe about there. Okay, so now I've got two lines in the road. So if I want, I can erase those lines, maybe. Oh, it's on that layer. That. Okay, so don't worry about erasing them as we go through. I just did that to give you some clarification. I'm going to go back to my layer with the horizontal lines that I just made. Okay, and I'm going to turn on my guide. Shrink this down so you can see it better. And I'm going to make sure that it's horizontal on the page. Okay. And then I'm going to take my guide, I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to change the angle to about, oh, sorry. I do that a lot. I'm going to change the angle to about 30 degrees. And I'm going to draw, oops, I'm sorry, I'm still an eraser. I'm waking up here. I'm going to draw an angled line. And then here, I'm going to draw an angled line. Okay. And then, oh, sketchbook. I'm going to come up here. And on that first one, I'm going to draw a horizontal line. And on the second one, I'm going to draw a horizontal line. Same thing here, 30 degrees. Then I'm going to go here, horizontal line, horizontal line. Okay. And so I'm creating the spaces between each of our road line. And that line, the angle of the line that I picked was just based on my perception.
Professor,
Hi.
how do you decide how far forward to draw that next line when you're already at your 30 degrees?
It should just line up with the line. I'm a little confused. Which line do you want to know about? This line?
The first two horizontal or diagonal lines.
These two?
The second one, especially, yes.
That one?
Sorry, the middle.
I lined it like what I'm doing. Oh, I made a little bit of a boo-boo there. I pulled it from here instead of here. How did I decide how to draw it? Like, how do they decide the 30 degrees?
No. So I get that the 30 degrees is perspective, and then the first line is because you draw the 30-degree line.
Oh, you know
Um,
what? I made a boo-boo, didn't I? That should be there. No, I did that. That's right.
I see.
So like what you're doing is like you're doing your angle and then you're lining up your ruler with that angle from like this point here
Mhm.
and you're
Okay,
drawing over.
got it.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have zoomed in too because you can see that my lines aren't they're not lining up very well because I was zoomed out a lot. So let me just do it again for you. Because
Excuse me, Professor.
I do need to be better on my lines. Yeah, Shang.
Yeah. So we're gonna do on the image that I added as a layer, and when we're gonna do on that that layer from your image, right?
You should have already had it as an image.
Yeah. So if I work on that image, so how can we erase the gap that you just draw?
You should be just making new layers each time.
Ah, okay. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, always just make new layers. There you go, y'all. That's a bit better. Sorry, I didn't do a very good job the first time. So it's basically just like diagonal line. And again, that angle could be up to you. It could be a different angle if you want. Diagonal line. These look much better. Sorry, I was too zoomed out. Horizontal. Horizontal. Diagonal. Oh, I just remembered we still have to do 2-point perspective next week. So what I always like about like perspective like this is like, you know, it changes how you see the world. Like if we made these, like if I made this solid here, and I made this solid here, and I echoed that over here, suddenly we're not on a road. We're on like a monorail, or like we could even be on like a roller coaster. Do you see where these are rails rather than sidewalks? So we could be looking down. There could be buildings here, like the monorail downtown. Just by saying that these lines no longer indicate measurement, they indicate a form that is heading downwards. I always think that's kind of fun. So just do as far back as you want to, you know, remember when you zoom out, all these little spaces are going to be pretty tiny. And then they're going to basically just disappear. So then I have those lines here, and then I have the middle lines here. Okay. So what I need to do is now I can just simply go back to this one if I want. And then I can just use my horizontal line tool and I can put those lines in that we just drew. And then I can turn this off, take my eraser and erase that space between them. Back here, we can just give like the illusion of distance. Because when we zoom out, that will just disappear.
I missed what you just did.
I just basically, so like this is the layer with all our lines, or all our diagonal and horizontal lines. So I had, you may not have, but I had that the road lines on its own layer. So what I did was where each of those horizontal lines that we made here, I just went in and redrew them on the layer with just the lines. And then I just erased the space between. There was like a line here and here, and I just erased it. So if you took my picture from the Canvas site, you probably can't do that. You might have to just go in and hand erase. But also right now, as long as you understand that principle, that's all you need to do.
Why your lines like get smaller and smaller, but mine is like the same size like this?
I would imagine because one of us didn't do it right. It sounds like maybe you. What's going on there, Danny? That was Danny, right?
Can you turn on the purple one? Yeah, it's Danny. Can you turn on the purple one, please? Thank you.
Okay.
It's 30-degree angle, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Okay, so just a reminder, we are recording. I can't see your screens, but so if you have questions, you need to just holler up or holler out, and I'll get to your question, no problem. So what we're going to do now is I just suggest that what you do is create a new layer. Boop. You can even change colors if you want. Boop. Okay. And so then turn on your perspective grid. Boop. And then we're going to work on the left side of the road because we haven't really done much over there. All right. And so let's go ahead and create like a little bit of like a grassy sidewalk thing, like a little median grass thing. And so like, I'm not going to use this line, the blue orthogonal there. That's just too easy. I'm just actually going to go a little bit below that. How am I making that decision? I'm just choosing. If you look, it's about, if we could do something like, let's take that measurement and just move it over and boom. So you can always do that. You can always pick one of these and say, this is this long. I want this to be that long too. So now that we're here, again, we have endless possibility. Okay, we're going to do a building on the left side, but it's going to be half off the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a choice. I'm going to draw, I'm on a new layer, y'all. I'm just going to draw a horizontal line right over here. Okay, and I'm going to think, well, that looks like maybe if I do this, then I'm going to get like kind of like, maybe that would be a good place for a doorway. Maybe what I'll do is take this line here and use that to draw my building. So now the outside right contour of the building matches with the middle of the door on the other side. Now we won't be able to find the center of this building using corner to corner because we can't see all of the building. So instead, let's see if we can't find ourselves like some type of way to establish an idea of where we want the door to go. So if we think about our perception, we can perceive perhaps that this space here is half of the building on the other side of the door, and that if we were to think then from here off the page, then that would say like the other half of the building would be much more close to us. So we could use this center space as a doorway, and I think it wouldn't feel too bad. I think it would feel okay. Like hey, how do you feel about that door? I'm okay. Okay, cool. So if we look over here at this side of the road, we could take a measurement here to get an idea of where the height of the door is on the building on the right. So if we want the door to be the same height, we can just simply take that point and draw our orthogonal like that. And so then that would make the building on the left side of the road have a door the same height as on the right side of the road. Okay. And then we could draw up and up. And we can say, well, we definitely need to make sure that the door on the left side is taller than the door on the right side because the door on the right side is further away. And so is the door on the left side taller? Yes, it is. Not by much, but it's taller. So if we look at that and we think about how we're perceiving that space, we could even say, well, maybe we want the door a little bit higher. And so we could do that by pulling maybe from the corner of that building over and then doing an orthogonal and seeing like, does that look any better? Sure. Maybe it should be a bit higher like that. You're making up stuff, y'all. This is just you making it up. And so as a result, the world is your oyster. We can get something like that. I just feel like I'm in Bob Ross mode when I'm drawing like this. Okay, so let's think about the thickness of the door frame, because we didn't do that on the other side. We did the thickness of the wall, but we didn't do the thickness of the door frame. Let's have kind of like a recessed door. Let's like a 1920s like apartment building door. So let's push this in. How far should we pull it in? I don't know, up to you. You decide. I'm gonna do about halfway through the door frame, I think. And then I'm just gonna do a straight line up. Now, because that interior space is the top of it is above the horizon line, then we know we're not really going to see much of the inside top. Here. However, I have a feeling that if we say that this is going back there, if we draw a horizontal line over from that corner, Look at that. It's going to create a visible upper plane. Whoops. There. So let's do that again. So we had our door. I erased the line that was there at the top. Okay. Then I decided that there should be an interior space to the door frame on the bottom. I made a perception of how deep it should be. I said it should be about halfway through the door frame or the entranceway. I drew a vertical line up from the outside edge of that line. And then I drew an orthogonal back to the vanishing point. And then I drew a horizontal line over, just like I did on the bottom, but now I'm doing it on the top. And that showed me that there was a little bit of that top plane that's going to be visible. And then I drew my orthogonal. So I'm going to do myself a favor here, and I'm going to just redraw the stuff I want to keep on the new layer. Turn off the perspective grid. Well, I can leave it on, I guess. When I change my color back to our red that we've been using for the final drawings. Oh, one last line I need. Now I have that. Could also trace down because we did decide to have like a little bit of a grassy thing there. So if that line's going to be grass, then I don't think we want to step through grass to get to the front door, so we can just put that in there. Maybe just erase that. Now to sort of show you just to sort of explain, the drawing I did with the other class was entirely different from this. Like it just is a totally different drawing. And so like what I like about that is that like it shows how perspective can create possibility. We started it the same exact way, but it doesn't look anything like this. Now we could be a bit sassy here if we wanted to and make another layer. I'm going to change my color since I'm working in another layer. And you can be as sassy as you want to be. I'm going to turn on the perspective grid. And let's go back to putting a line here. Okay. And then saying, well, if we're going to, let's make some, I don't know, let's just make some stones there, some paving stones. Okay. Really simple, really just very simple paving stones. All right, so we can do our classic sort of like corner to corner here, corner to corner there, vertical line that gives us a point here. Okay, so then we can turn on our perspective grid and we can do orthogonal. Okay, and then we could do like one of these things where we go here and we go corner to corner, corner to corner. Okay, and then we just do our orthogonal through there. And then that gives us a point here. So just make a new layer, or I can go to this layer with the door frame on it, go back to my red. And then I just want to keep those lines that I drew here, and here, and here. Then I can go back to this, go back to my blue, and I can figure out the pace of the line work on the horizontal line. Line. So here is a horizontal line. Whoops. Horizontal line there. Gives me one type of line like that. And I could do corner to corner. Now I can't see all of that corner. I have to just kind of imagine where it's going to go. And then to find this one, I'm just going to actually meet that angle. I'm just having fun right now. If you're not at this level, no worries. I'm just playing. I want you to see me just play because I want you to understand that that's how you just get better at this stuff. Boop. Okay, so I'm going to start the recording. Okay, and I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to turn on my perspective grid. All right, and I'm going to do the first telephone pole. I'm going to line it up with the outside edge of that building over there. And then for the thickness of the telephone pole, we'll decide that in a second. We're going to pull straight up. And let's make sure that the telephone pole does not go off the page. So now we need to decide, are we going to do the telephone pole on this side of the grass or in the grass? You know, the opportunity is open in terms of, you know, we have great possibility here. Okay, but what we're going to do, I think, is let's go ahead and do the telephone poles on the other side of the grass. So just extend your horizontal line over. We're going to use our perception to determine how wide the telephone pole might be. Again, just going to make a choice. And then we're going to do an orthogonal from here to here and an orthogonal from there to there. And we're actually just going to start off with the telephone pole up here as being just a horizontal line. Yes, it's going to be curved, but right now it's just horizontal. Okay. And then let's go ahead and do our orthogonal there and there. So that gives us an idea of kind of what's going to happen. So if I turn off all this other stuff, just so you can see this clearly. That's basically what it looks like. Now, if you think about this, like we could just say, okay, well, if we drew a line here and here, basically we just have like a really long, elongated rectangle. And that's kind of not a bad idea. That's very much kind of like an idea that we could carry with us. Okay. Now, what we need to do, if we look at the orthogonals that we've established on the top and the bottom, we've already established the diminishing height of the telephone poles. Like we already know how high they're going to be, and we already know where they're coming in contact with the floor, with the ground. What we need to do is establish the distance between the telephone poles, okay? And so there are actually two different ways that we could do this, okay? We could use our, if we established where the smallest telephone pole is, the one that's the furthest away, we could establish that and we could do corner to corner and find the center of that space, and then corner to corner and find the center of that space, and that would give us an equal diminishing space in which to have our telephone poles. This works really well. It gives us what we need, totally fine. Okay, now the other method would be to take our first telephone pole and just work with that. So let's go ahead and do that. Sorry, I'm just doing this so you can see. So now we again, we have our outside here and here. Okay, and then we have our top here to here. And so we could now take our guide and look at our idea of a perceived amount of distance. So if we did like 60 degrees, the first two poles would be extremely far away from one another. So then if we did something much closer to 75 degrees, minus 75 degrees it says, then that would tell us where the telephone pole could go. And then we draw that pole, and then we again do 75 degrees and 75 degrees. So I think that what we should do is go ahead and let's do the first choice. Okay, so let's go through that again. So what you're going to do, we had all this, right? And we have this. No, we had this. This. I did this better on the other class because I remembered to make one final layer and then we would turn it on and off. So now we have this. So what you need to do is you need to establish your first telephone pole, the height of the first telephone pole and its location. So that's what we did with the blue lines. So let's go ahead and do that. So we said, okay, that was where it was going to line up horizontally with the other building. And then we drew the height. And then we did the width, height again, orthogonal, 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 oh, sorry, horizontal line at the top, then orthogonal, orthogonal. Then we established the distance for the furthest telephone pole away. Then we use the orthogonals we'd already drawn to draw the other distance. Now you should be able to draw a horizontal line between them and it should line up. Oh no, I shouldn't have drawn anything. I have to do it all from this point on. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use our straight line tool. And we just need to focus on the front. We don't need to do the front and the back, but we're going to do that to that. So visually speaking, that is the center of that entire space. So the front is much longer than the back because of the perspective. So then we're going to divide that space right there. Should probably use this tool to get me a nice vertical line. So I'm just going to change color so you can see it. I'm going to use my straight line tool. I'm going to go corner to corner there, corner to corner there. Vertical line. So now I have 4 telephone poles. And I'm just going to draw horizontal line, horizontal line. Vertical line, vertical line. And then back there's already got the vertical line. Okay. So then I think what would be easiest is to duplicate that layer. And on the duplicate layer, go ahead and just draw in your poles with the straight line tool. Might want to use something a bit darker personally, I think. Don't worry about making the bottom horizontal lines perfect because we're actually going to remove them. But we do need to know where they are. I'm so silly. Okay, and once you've traced your lines, then go ahead and you can use your eraser and erase all the additional lines that we don't need right now. I thought that would take care of that problem, and apparently it didn't. Because I duplicated the whole layer, silly Billy. I'm just cleaning up, removing the lines I don't need. If we were doing this with a pencil, we'd have to do this with a pencil and eraser, and we have to do this in that process too. It's just as lengthy and takes just as much time. And then you can always go over, once you've cleaned it up, you know, we can always just make another layer and quickly trace it again. Wonder if we could use this tool. Nope. So we just want the poles right now. Oh yeah, look. Boop. I'm just using the rectangle tool to make my rectangles. Dope. The last one looks a little thick. Sometimes I forget about the usefulness of something like the rectangle tool. You just have to make sure that your page is straight. How there was a telephone pole placed in the middle of the space. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this layer that I had here, just a layer that I can later remove information from. Okay, I use my straight line tool. I'm going to go corner to corner here and here. And then I'm just going to draw my vertical line right up here, so that I now know where the center of this is. And then I'm going to use my perception to think about like the cross brace on an old telephone pole, like where would it be? So I can actually here use my rectangle tool. And I could just draw in a rectangle. Like that. We can kind of check that it's the same on each side. We could do that. And have a look at those two angles and look like it, and I'm gonna like I can assess those two angles personally, just based on my experience, and say, are they sort of creating equal triangles on each side? They look like they are. Once I've done that, I can turn my perspective tool on, and I can go ahead and do my orthogonals like this. Now that little rectangle thing that the telephone wires would be connected to would have a thickness. So it looks something like that. So now I can go ahead and put in my second one. I'm gonna use the rectangle tool again, and I'm lining up based on what this is telling me to do. So we can see, y'all, that this corner here, that these orthogonals are coming from that corner. So that means where that rectangle interacts with these two orthogonals, that dictates the outside edge of this form here. Okay. So then we have the same thing that we had over there. We have the horizontal line to there and here. Again, we can use this. We can just start over here and we can pull down there and we can pull over here. That's not in the right place, Vaughn. Let's do it this way. It's a little bit off. Gosh, down tootin'. Okay, I see what I'm doing. So then if we draw through here, silly Billy, I forgot to do that. Then we can see where this orthogonal runs through there. And I can see it here, I can see it here. So that's where my rectangle needs to go through. And so I can then say, okay, so then my rectangle's height is this high, and it's going to come over and come into contact here. And then it's going to come down to here. And then it's going to go back over to here. And then it's going to come over to here and then down to there. So you can see there, like the logic playing out. So then if we were to do this, we could say where that is. Okay. So we can find that thickness. There. And then we're going to do this, we can do the same thing here. So quiet. Well, you know, please yell out. So I'm just going to transfer the lines now for the rectangles that I want to keep onto my final layer for my telephone poles. Dooby dooby doo. Now, this is, you're kind of notice that on my little cross braces here, that there's like a little bit of a difference on the length of the left side to the right side. That's because in the first one, I think there must have been a minute difference between the left side and the right side. Or even when I created my orthogonals, I didn't line them up to join perfectly. And what happens is like the more that you use those same lines as they go back in space, it like, you know, it's like one mistake adds to another mistake, adds to another mistake, adds to another mistake. And then things get a little bit funky as a result. So it's just like carpentry, y'all. That's one of the reasons why I don't do carpentry. That third telephone wire there, the little cross brace is a little funky, but we're going to leave it. It's old. It's falling apart. Okay, then we could do our wires. Okay, to do the wires, let's go back to this layer. Actually, I'm just going to take this layer. I'm going to duplicate that layer. We could do corner to corner here and here, here, and here, giving us the center there and the center there. So then if we turn on the perspective tool, we can draw orthogonals from both of those points, and they're going to go through the same point on all the telephone poles. Okay. So then we can just go back to this layer that doesn't have that on it, but we can now redraw those orthogonals. And then think about where they're going to cut off because the telephone pole is in the way. Or like here, it's going to go in front of the telephone pole. So we have something like this maybe. We can make that solid if we want, like it was, you know, cast out of iron or something. So here, I would let the telephone wire go in front of the pole to come in contact here, but then we wouldn't see it here. Right? Again, we wouldn't see it here. But we would see it there, coming in contact with the pole, but we wouldn't see it here. We need that line. We wouldn't see it here, but we'd see it in front of the pole, but we wouldn't see it here. Okay. So it's kind of weird to have our telephone wires just drop there. So I think maybe what we should do is maybe just pick an angle and shoot them down to the ground. Like, you know, these days they put telephone wires under the ground in a lot of places. So I think we should do that. Just shoot them down to the ground. Just like that. Problem taken care of. Okay. So the last thing that you're going to need to do for your homework is more playful stuff for you. You know, like you're going to get a chance to do some playing around. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to do, basically, you're going to submit 3 versions of your drawing that you do digitally for your homework. You're going to do one Word document with all of these in it. So I want you to do one like screenshot of your space that includes like 3 layers at least. So even if you have like 30 layers, I just need to see 3. I just want to see that you're doing the work. And then you're going to do one screenshot or one saved JPEG, whatever, of just the final drawing with just the line work. Okay, so no layers, just the final drawing, just the line work. Then I want you to do one last drawing as well, where you're going to use, I'm just trying to find a way to make a layer here. Why won't it let me draw? Oh, I know why. I don't want to do that. Oh, it is drawing. So I'm just putting in the horizon line here for us. Frustrating. You're going to do one final drawing as well for me that is in color. Now, we haven't talked about color and value, so I'm not expecting you to change the world here. I just want you to see like the possibility of what you can do with a little bit of color, okay? So we're gonna mostly use the paint bucket tool. And when you hit the paint bucket tool, y'all, when you like hit an area that all your lines don't join, it's gonna overfill the area. So if you're doing that, then what you need to do is go through and check to make sure that all your lines are touching one another, okay? And you need to make sure, like I just did, that you're on the right layer. So like, you know, there you go, okay? So when you're doing things with the paint bucket tool and it fills in too much of an area, then there's a good chance that your lines, like in your corners, aren't meeting up. There's a good example. Finally, a good example, Vaughn. Okay, so like you've got your solid fill, and then you've also got gradient fill, which is you can fill in individual spaces with a gradient. I don't think you should do that if you don't have an understanding yet of light logic, because you could very easily accidentally like put gradients next to one another that just simply don't match. So like you could accidentally do like here, if you did that, that wouldn't make much sense really, because inside the doorway you have light on the bottom and dark on the top, and on the outside of the building you have dark on the bottom and light on the top. So that's not logical in terms of light, okay? So you don't necessarily have to use the gradient tool. If you'd like to, I don't mind you playing around, but you know, remember I'm going to sort of be grading your drawing. So you want it to be correct. Okay, makes sense. And so if you're not sure about how to, you know, create correct gradients and fill things in with value like that, then don't worry about it. Just fill it in with solid colors. Okay, so again, when you put a solid down, if it fills in too much of your space, then you need to go in and check all of your lines are matching one another and like meeting up. Otherwise, it will like go beyond the space because there's an open contour. So the contours have to be solid in order for the fill tool to only match inside that space. So you can see right there that that isn't a solid line in there. So if I go in and just strengthen my corners, now it is a solid line. Okay. Be aware, like you see here how like the fill didn't fill in all of everything. If you're finding that the fill isn't filling in all of your space, then you can increase its tolerance to pick up more color or more value. When you create your final drawing, that's where you should really spend the time to make sure all of your contours match up. And then that will really help you when you go to do the version that has like full color. What does your full color version look like? I don't know. Have some fun. Okay. So the assignment, let me go ahead and open it for you. And you're not going to pay attention to any other assignments. I made this decision yesterday. I'm going to go with this decision because quite frankly, that's just the way I am. Okay, so you're going to be doing a digital 1-point drawing. I think this is the older version of the assignment. You can only use 1-point perspective, y'all. Okay, you can't use 2-point perspective. So that means that all of your perspective tools in terms of like the grid should be on 1 point, not 2 point. Okay. If you only have Sketchbook like on your phone or something, do not hesitate to reach out to me immediately so that we can come up with an alternative idea. Okay. I'm not going to give allowances for people who just don't want to do it in perspective. Okay. But some of you have already alerted me to the fact that like you're having some problems with perspective and on Sketchbook, like Sketchbook keeps crashing and different things keep happening. So you and I are already in communication. So just reach out to me again and we will establish a different format for you. However, you just not wanting to do Sketchbook is just not going to, that's just not going to do it, okay? You don't get that choice because again, I have to grade everybody equally and you know, I have to be aware that what I'm doing is going to be good for everybody. So if we look at the assignment, oh, I think I'm still recording, hold on.